Everybody ready? Good evening. Welcome to the August 8th, 2016 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Can we have the roll, please?
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Mr. Spring.
Here.
Mr. Cange.
Present.
Miss Bailey.
Here.
Miss Barker.
Here.
Mr. Walker. Mr. Sporhays and Mr. Strike have been excused. And Mr. Spinelli, thank you.
Any disclosures? John?
I have none.
Danielle?
I was not present for case 2016-0023, which is on the consent agenda, so I will not be able to vote on that.
Tony?
No disclosures.
Mitzi?
Nothing to disclose.
And I have nothing to disclose. Brings up the consent agenda. Am I right to say that we do not currently have 5 votes for the consent agenda? Take action on it?
Be a quorum of those that are here, though. Even with people who've established a quorum.
Do I need to move beyond it, or just bring up the first case? Okay, so noting here that we don't have a quorum to approve the resolution in front of us, we will move forward to public hearing case 2016-0077, major site plan review in accordance with AMC 2103180 for a hotel motel as required by the property's special limitations. Could we have I'll get to that before. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This petitioner is requesting a major site plan approval of a new 4-story, 148-room hotel in Midtown. The hotel is designed for the vacationer and business traveler. A cafe, dining room, and bar are shown on the main floor, as well as 2 meeting rooms, a fitness area, and an indoor pool. The site plan has been reviewed against the standards set forth in AMC 2103, 2104, 2105, 2106, and 2107, and found to generally meet these standards. The property is subject to special limitations established by Assembly Ordinance 98-184. Special limitation B1 specifically requires a public hearing site plan review be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to issuance of any building permit. The proposed site plan complies with the dimensional standards for the underlying B3 zoning district. There is an on-site pedestrian walkway from Tudor Road to the south building entrance. There is also an opportunity to provide a pedestrian connection with this development to the existing Cuddy Midtown Family Park. This comment was made by Transportation Planning and is supported by the goals and policies of the Anchorage Pedestrian Plan. In conversation with the petitioner's representative this afternoon, there are some constraints to providing this connection, wetlands and topography mainly. There is a condition placed on this site plan that requires that connection. I'll be amending that at the end of this presentation with specific language. The parking lot perimeter landscaping requirement is met with L1 visual enhancement landscaping along the west, north, and south parking areas in accordance with AMC 2107-080. The parking lot interior landscaping requirement is met through the provision of 7,324 square feet of landscaping. Off-street loading areas are required to be screened. The petitioner is required to provide screening from the abutting streets for the 2 loading berths facing Tudor Road. That will be a condition of the site plan. 140 parking spaces is required. The site plan shows 151 parking spaces, so this standard is met. 4 bicycle parking spaces are shown. This meets the minimum requirement. The hotel is not anticipated to create adverse impacts on the surrounding uses. The proposed site plan generally complies with the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan. And so with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of this major site plan review for hotel subject to the conditions listed on page 8 of your staff packet, with one minor change to condition 7. Staff would like to recommend that the following language be added: resolve with planning the need to provide a 5-foot wide paved pedestrian walkway access to Cuddy Family Park. And this is for the reasons previously stated with regard to topography and wetlands on the site. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. I have a question from Mr. Spring for you.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on the access, the problems with the 5-foot access. What is the, you said wetlands, what is the wetland classification that you're concerned about, and what is the topography difference that is the problem?
Through the chair, Mr. Spring, I believe there are some grade issues there. There's a pretty steep slope, as well as Class C wetlands, which would require permitting through the Corps, but administered by the planning department.
If I can continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Class C wetlands wouldn't prohibit the actual 5-foot access to the property on the petition site, right?
Through the chair, Mr. Spring, no. I think the idea behind amending the condition is to bring out, to vet all the issues, the concerns of the petitioner and petitioner's representative, and to determine whether or not a connection could be made. I suppose that those concerns could be vetted tonight if the commission wanted to bring this up with the petitioner's representative.
Just one other comment, I guess. It seems like the problem isn't the actual feasibility of the 5-foot access on the property. It's more of the feasibility of the park to provide some type of connection to the property, if that was to be done. Correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Spring, the idea is to provide an amenity to the people staying at this hotel, providing that connection to the park, not the other way around, if I understand what you're saying correctly.
Oh, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, when you say to add language to resolve with planning the need to, I understand that is the need to is a requirement by the planning department vis-a-vis some, planning documents or something else, that whether or not there's a need to connect this site to the park. If the issue is whether or not it's possible to connect, it's sort of, to me, they're two different things. The need is we all decide that through the site plan review requirement or through, code requirements, they're required to provide this connection. If they're then unable to do so, then it's not based on need, it's based on the conditions.
Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, that's probably a good point. Perhaps the language, the need, should be changed to possibly feasibility. I'm open to any language that the commission would like to see there.
But staff's position is that you'd like to see that trail connection unless what?
I think that the recommendation from transportation planning was not fully vetted. They didn't look into the site constraints of putting in such a connection. This afternoon, the petitioner's representative brought up some, what I believe, valid points, and in an effort to hear him out and work those out with the agencies that made that comment, I believe that a resolve comment is probably warranted. So that's why we've amended it to make that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And any comment as to the status of where this project is currently?
Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking.
Is there permits granted for this project already?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. With that, and just For the record, I'd like the record to show that Mr. Sporhays has now joined us. Mr. Sporhays, any disclosures on either the cases or the resolution this evening?
None, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to move on to the public hearing portion. We were going to offer you postponement with a short board, but you now have 6 members of the board here, so that's no longer an option. You, of course, can choose to postpone if you'd like at your cost. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Commission at its meeting is as follows. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, we'll ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, 10 minutes, and part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., 5 minutes, and individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes, except Commission recommendations to the Assembly, which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the Clerk's Office within 20 days after approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission of the resolution, which is the Commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. So with that, I'd like to invite, John, you're on the queue from before, right? That's okay. I invite the petitioner forward. And, as always, state your name and please spell it for the record. Let us know what you'd like to reserve for rebuttal as well.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, staff, my name is Tom Adams, ADAMS. I'm a civil engineering consultant with the Lounsbury Associates. We are representing the petitioner, PEG Development. As Mr. Whitfield stated, we were generally in agreement with all the recommendations of approval. We worked with staff through a pre-app meeting, through follow-up conversations, and we had our community meeting. I think there's generally community support for this, as shown by the Community Council's resolution to us in the form of actually a vote at their meeting, 5-0 in support of this project. And as Mr. Whitfield suggested, this would typically not require we be before you for this project on this particular tract of land, except for the special limitations included in the AO. So I guess I'd like to reserve 4 minutes and to address Mr. Springs' comment with respect to the discussion of condition number 7. It would be our suggestion that this not be a code requirement, which is the way it's generally presented right now, that we must provide a connection. We're providing our pedestrian connectivity vis-a-vis the pathway between Tudor Road and the primary entrance on the building, which faces Tudor Road, and that's not being contested here. But there has been a general, I guess, suggestion for us to provide a pedestrian connection between this site and the Cuddy Family Park to the north. And our petitioners are generally in agreement with that. They also feel that might provide a benefit to their customers. However, as we started to investigate this opportunity, we found through the grading of the site, we're going to have somewhere in the order of 4 to 5 foot grade change on the north side of the land and the original ground at the Cuddy Park. And we've also determined that there are wetlands. The Anchorage Wetlands map actually incorrectly shows this tract as having almost 2/3 of it as a wetland, and we've been working with not only the Corps but the municipality to correct those maps. We're still in the progress of that. We have the general support of the municipality, but we have to get that acknowledged by the Corps. So we don't have wetlands on our property, but they have been delineated to be just north of this property's boundary on the Cuddy property. So in order to make it a useful pedestrian connection to the Cuddy Park, to bring it to the facilities, either the speed oval or the pedestrian pathways, you would have to cross those wetlands. And how that would be done, we haven't determined how that would take place because that's on municipal property. So I like the way you framed your question earlier. The challenge isn't necessarily with how we bring pedestrian connection to the northern boundary of our property, but what purpose does it serve if there's nothing brought to it from and by the municipality on the Cuddy Park property. So, if this condition were left as is just a straight provide, you know, I guess engineering-wise, we might be able to do something to bring it there, but it would be just that. It would be no real destination, because I'm sure Hyatt does not want its guests to be crossing wetlands, and it really is. It's kind of a muck there on that north side to get across to the speed oval. So working with staff, you know, we still think maybe we could all come to some kind of a conclusion of whether or not, you know, what is really feasible and you know, what really makes sense, not just from the fact is can you do it, but why should we do it? It's not a code requirement. We're meeting code requirements, and, you know, it's our suggestion that these recommendations ought to be based on what's required by code. So generally, when I started earlier today with Mr. Whitfield, I gave him the heads up that, you know, we'd be contesting this actual recommendation, but in the end, we came to a conclusion and agreement that we could modify the language of this condition such that it can be resolved, so we can go forward, and in the end, it might mean that we can provide that connection in some form because the municipality decides they want to bring it from the north, or it might mean that we don't provide a connection. But I think there's some additional conversations that can take place beyond these conditions of approval if that is properly worded. So in the absence of that one condition, you know, I'd like to, I like the discussion with respect to the word need, and you know, I agree with that perhaps the resolve with planning, you know, we could wordsmith that to mean what it's supposed to mean. Other than that, we are in agreement with conditions 1 through 6 and number 8. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I have a question for you from John Spring.
Yes. Well, I think my concern issue is that here we have a beautiful park in Midtown, a lot of effort made to make it attractive, and there's really nothing, everybody's turning their back to it. It's the existing development, very little access to it. There's Walmart, there's Lowe's that's adjacent to it, which was built before Cuddy Park, and there's no access there, and there's nothing fronting or utilizing that amenity. I think parks should have some type of access and some type of benefit for the surrounding properties, and I think there should be some interface between the properties and a park like that. I mean, that's why you have a park. That's why we went to all the effort to develop it. But I think a question for you is you're saying that the grading of the property is going to require, it's going to be level, obviously, and the grading is going to create a 4-foot slope then between your property and the Cuddy Park. Is that what you said?
Through the chair, Mr. Spring, yeah, that's correct.
It's not currently a slope, but there will be a slope once you develop the property.
Correct. Our preliminary grading plan for this proposes placing on the order of 4 to 5 feet on the existing ground, and so that would create that grade change that I'm suggesting will be there. So then we're going to have on that fill slope will basically be a 3-to-1 slope leading to the northern property boundary.
Okay, thank you.
Just so I understand, was your understanding that the requirement for this trail connection, if it were deemed to be feasible, would be just to the boundary itself? Is that what we're talking about? In other words, not taking it further into the park? It was a little unclear to me. I'm not suggesting that's where we're headed with this. I just want to, for the record, understand your understanding that that's what it was about.
Yeah, Mr. Robinson, so correct. So I asked Mr. Whitfield to verify that this morning as well, because it was, initially there were, during pre-app conversations, there was a general request for us to provide a connection between Tudor Road and Cuddy Park, and that just became not feasible with, the use of the land we have. So Mr. Whitfield did suggest this was only for us to bring access on PEG Development's property, on this Hyatt Place property, to the northern property boundary. Okay. And nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner at this point? Seeing none, you have 5 minutes and 7 seconds for rebuttal. We'll open things up for public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify on this case? Anyone at all?
Thank you to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the opportunity to speak in regards to case 2016-0077, the proposed development of Hyatt Place. My name is Sarah Nelson, N-E-L-S-O-N, Sarah, S-A-R-A-H. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for 3 Midtown hotels and longtime Alaskan and local Anchorage resident. This evening, I am representing my employer, Interstate Hotels and Resorts, and property owners, Bree Select. Together, we represent 3 hotels located in Midtown Anchorage, including the Hilton Garden Inn, the Homewood Suites, and the Hampton Inn. Combined, these properties employ approximately 100 full-time employees. In 2015, these 3 hotels combined paid approximately $850,000 in taxes. Our group is concerned about the proposed development of the Hyatt Place Hotel because of the negative impact it will have on the business of these 3 hotels. This will in turn impact my family and the family of each of these 100 existing employees. We are opposed to the development of the Hyatt Place because of several reasons, including Alaska as a whole has seen hotel demand decline by 0.2% in the past year. The upper upscale market, which includes Hyatt Place, shows a decline specifically of 1.1%. The city of Anchorage is faring worse than the state, as the decline in the Midtown market alone is 6.7%. Unfortunately, we anticipate this decline to accelerate once the tourist and high season ends in a matter of weeks. Just this past week, we made significant changes to our forecast and drastically reduced our revenues for the remainder of 2016. The impact of the slowdown in the oil and gas sector has significantly impacted our business. The hotel room night production of this one segment is down significantly in 2016 compared to last year. The loss of this base business at all hotels has forced us to reduce costs and cut labor expenses, directly impacting our employees. Several new hotels are currently already under construction in the immediate vicinity of the proposed Hyatt Place. The arrival of this new inventory into an already saturated hotel market will continue to have a negative impact on the success of existing hotels. This will force continued cuts to expenses, reduction in hours, and layoffs of employees. What we have seen in 2016 is as the number of hotels continues to grow and as the demand declines, hotels are forced to drop their rates to compete. Although this benefits the guests, it significantly impacts revenues and taxes made, resulting in expense cuts and reduced tax dollars paid to the city. The 3-year economic outlook for the city of Anchorage, produced by the Anchorage Development Corporation, has the market continuing to show a decline in 2017 and stabilizing in 2018, with a recovery not expected until at least 2019 at the earliest.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? I see no questions. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify? Hearing none, you got your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me, first of all, go back to a question that was asked during the original discussion amongst the commissioners on permit status. And I can tell you right now, we have not yet submitted for a building permit. We did recently submit plans to AWW for the water and sewer service extensions. Those have subsequently been forwarded on to DOT because we'll need to tap into their facilities, which are inside Tudor Road. We are also intending here shortly to submit permits for a grading and fill permit. We were scheduled to do that earlier this summer, and then the wetlands kind of creeped up on us. So we had to resolve the wetland issue prior to submitting our application for grading fill permit. So the intent is the building permit application will be prepared in full with the architectural design and the MEP design and submitted later this fall. With grading and fill permit allow us perhaps to do some site prep this fall and then start building construction early next season. I guess I want to address the one comment with respect to the comment by the public with that brought forward some opposition. understand I'm the civil engineering consultant. I'm not the market analyst that makes a decision whether or not this hotel goes here. So I'm reacting to my client's decision to go build on this particular piece of property, which is Zone B3, and a hotel is a permitted use on this particular property. And then going back to the particular discussion on condition of approval number 7, again, you know, keep in mind this, and I think staff would agree, this is not a code required item. We have met the code required items with respect to pedestrian connectivity. So this is kind of an amenity, one that our client doesn't discourage, but one they don't want to be required to have to construct if it's not feasible to do so. And we haven't had those full conversations with staff yet to really decide the merits of this connection. So if we could, you know, at a minimum, modify the language so that it does allow that discussion to take place and doesn't force this connectivity to happen when it doesn't make sense to do so, you know, we're willing to do that in the absence of actually arguing our way out of the condition in its entirety. So with that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body? Go ahead, Mr. Spring.
In the matter of case 2016-0077, major site plan review for Hyatt Place Hotel, I move for approval of the site plan with the conditions recommended by staff, and including a change in the wording for condition number 7 to read, resolve with MOA Planning and MOA Parks and Recreation Department the feasibility of providing a 5-foot wide paved pedestrian walkway across to Cuddy Family Park.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. That's seconded by Mr. Sporhays. Would you like to speak to your motion?
There may be a real problem with an access. I think after grading, there could be a pretty significant slope that might be difficult to overcome. Perhaps it'd be just a matter of providing some steps or something to get up to the level of the Cuddy Park, but I don't know because I haven't really studied the grading plan. I think we need to include the Parks and Recreation Department, and we haven't heard from them about the desirability of this connection and whether or not they'd be willing to provide some type of walkway connection to that 5-foot walkway from the Hyatt Hotel. So I included them purposely in that change in that condition to make it a joint decision between the planning and the Parks and Recreation Department.
With the petitioner's involvement?
I'm assuming it would be involved in the petitioner. He'd have to provide the information, obviously.
And is it clear that before I go to a question for Mr. Kange, is it clear that condition is again to the property boundary?
Yes, I am glad you clarified that.
Okay.
That would be it. But the Parks and Recreation Department could also provide information about whether or not they want to provide a connection to that walkway, whether it's feasible for that. Does it make sense to the Parks and Recreation Department to have that connection on their property?
Right.
And whether or not they want to commit to perhaps providing a walkway connection in the parkland to that. So it's all part of the issue, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spring. Mr. Kange.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I'm going to vote in favor of this motion. I feel that the proposed site plan complies with the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan. The site plan also will not create an adverse impact on the surrounding uses, which are primary commercial. And I think for me, parking is always an issue when it comes to hotels, and it looks like this site plan goes above and beyond the requirements. So I'd just like to echo that I'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Kange. Mr. Sporhays.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll obviously be supporting the motion as well, and I think that the petitioner laid out the concerns that we had with the access to the park, and which I will echo Commissioner Kange's concern with parking, and I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't feel comfortable supporting this with that piece in there concerning the park connection. While I understand the notion that we have a park that's behind the hotel and it'd be great to provide a connection, I hear the commissioner saying, yeah, the owner's willing to look at that as an amenity. First of all, it doesn't seem to be well planned, as Mr. Spring pointed out. There's no involvement from Parks and Rec. But I think an underlying issue that I'm concerned about is this notion of the private property owner being expected to provide kind of a stub connection, if you will, into the park that frankly invites then park users through their private property to access that stub connection. Unless I'm missing something, this, I don't know, it's not working for me.
Ms. Barker, your point is well taken. You are welcome to attempt an amendment to the motion if you'd like to do something to alter, or there's an expectation that maybe someone else would. I'd hate to see the entire lose your vote for something that you otherwise support because of a condition that frankly is not the petitioner's condition, if you follow me. So I just want to make sure that you're fair there. But any other comments or actions that the group would like to take? Ms. Bailey.
Just so the whole motion doesn't get shot down, I'd like to make a motion to amend to remove qualification, the condition number 7. I personally think I will vote against my motion.
Hold on a second, Ms. Bailey. Can I get a second for Ms. Bailey's motion, please? Danielle, can you make sure you hit it? Thank you. Can I get a second? Thank you, John. Go ahead.
I personally think I'll vote against my motion. I don't think it's out of the realm of what's standard here for us to encourage them to speak with planning staff to see if it's feasible and if it's something that the Parks Department wants to consider. I like how John had, Mr. Spring had that mentioned in here, that it really, it's at this stage, it's whether or not it is feasible, if it's determined by the planning department and by the petitioner that it is going to provide a nuisance. I think that goes into that feasibility area. I think Commissioner Barker has a very valid concern that we shouldn't be imposing extra restrictions, but I don't think it's going to meet that. So I'm going to be voting against my own motion.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Ms. Barker.
I'll be voting against it as well, and I'm going to propose another amendment.
Go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say, I think I wouldn't be in favor of supporting the motion. It sounds like the rest of us wouldn't. Because I think Mr. Spring's comments in there, albeit I don't want to impose anything on the landowners, it's not reasonable. I think that there's an opportunity for the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to work with staff to resolve this issue, and so that's why I won't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Please vote on the amendment. The amendment is to remove condition 7. That amendment fails. We're back to the main motion. Ms. Barker, did I hear you having, go ahead.
You did indeed. I would like to propose an amendment to Department Recommendation number 7, really just a slight variation, that the petition will resolve with the Municipal Planning Department and Parks and Recreation the feasibility of a voluntary pedestrian walkway access to the Cuddy Family Park.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Is there a second? Mitzi, could you hit the motion button first?
Oh, sorry.
Can we get a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Sporhays. Go ahead, Ms. Barker.
I think that just the addition of making it very plain that this is a voluntary action on the part of the petitioner to provide the connection, that would also provide an amenity to their guests. That resolves the issue for me. So that's why I'm proposing the amendment with the word voluntary.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Please vote on the amendment to the main motion. That amendment fails. Back to the main motion. Anyone else wishing to speak to the main motion? Hearing none, please vote on the main motion. Need 2 more votes. And the motion passes. I would just add 2 additional findings. One is that the petitioner had community council support. The other is that in front of us, while we heard testimony about market conditions, really this action is about the site plan and the adherence to good site planning and the conditions of the site plan, and to that end, the Commission found that this application complied with them. So thank you for your time here this evening. Can I go? We'll do it last. Okay, we're going to go to the next case, but please remind me before we leave here tonight, we can go back and handle the resolution that we missed earlier. So in front of us now, case 2016-0074, Hope Community Resources and conditional use permit in accordance with AMC 2105-030 for an assisted living facility for 9 or more individuals, generally located south of East 20th Avenue, west of Nichols Street, and north of East Northern Lights and east of Goose Lake Drive. Could we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, that this is an assisted living facility. It's proposed to serve elderly population or people suffering from Alzheimer's or cognitive infirmities. The property is a 5-acre parcel. It's rectangular in shape and it's relatively level, and it's heavily forested with existing natural vegetation. The subject of this conditional use are 2 structures located at the northwest corner of the property that were built in 1970 according to property appraisal records. They are residential structures, and they're built on the scale of the multifamily condominium units that are to the north across East 20th Avenue. Chester Creek Park, containing over 76 acres, is located to the west and the south of the petition site, and it is in public ownership. The Arc of Anchorage adjoins the east boundary of the petition site. A school and an office warehouse is located south and southeast of the site. The assisted living facility is to be located in each of the 2 residential structures located, as stated before, on the petition site. And although the request is for 9 residents or more, the application states that the facilities, when occupied, will probably serve only about 5 residents in each dwelling, and the staffing level will be 2 to 5, 2 staff for 5 residents. And so that's a total of 10 residents combined in the 2 buildings. The property is zoned PLI, which is an appropriate zoning district for this type of use. The use-specific standards are generally met. East 20th Avenue is paved. It accommodates 2 traffic lanes. Street lights are located on the north side of the street. However, it does not accommodate on-street parking or provide bicycle lanes. There is not a piped storm drain system in the street, and rolled curb and gutter are drainage is handled in the rolled curb and gutter. As stated, the existing natural vegetation has been preserved. Off-street parking is provided, and the parking lots are landscaped and/or buffered by existing natural vegetation. It also provides an adequate buffer for the residential development on the north side of East 20th Avenue. There are no loading docks on the site. Deliveries are via a covered entryway to each building, which also provides access to each building in the event of an emergency for emergency response vehicles. The proposed use, as stated, is residential in nature. The residents will be housed in residential structures which are built on a scale that's comparable to the multifamily condominium development. There is a long history of community service uses that have occupied these buildings over the past 30 years. The two residential structures formerly referred to as the Hope Cottages have a long history of residential treatment, and the dwellings have been used for emergency shelters, residential treatment facilities for teenage girls, and the current proposal is for an assisted living facility for those with dementia or the onset of Alzheimer's as an alternative to being institutionalized, which is the whole goal of this particular program, that each resident will be assessed as to their specific needs, and the program will be developed on an individualized basis for each of the residents that live there, depending on their specific needs. Given the disabilities of the future residents, it does seem unlikely that they will be driving or traveling by public transit independently, and will have to rely on staff or visitors for transportation to appointments or social events that may occur. The property is served by public water and sanitary sewer, and the petition site is located in the Building Safety Service Area, the Police and Fire Service areas, the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area, and the Parks and Recreation Service Area. Stating that it appears that the all standards have been met for the use-specific standards as well as the conditional use standards. The department does recommend approval of the petition, subject to the four conditions on page 9, with a correction to pay item number 4. I made a mistake. I thought it was a 6-foot-high fence that was on the south boundary of each dwelling. It is 4 feet high. So I need to change that to a 4-foot-high fence enclosure. And number 4 actually can be deleted because the amended site plan does indicate that there is a fence, 4-foot-high fence on the south end of each building. And that is particularly important for this particular future population, as the lot is heavily forested. It slopes down toward Chester Creek, and if the residents might wander, they could get lost in the woods, or they could go further down toward the creek. However, there is an extensive alarm system when doors are opened, and to alert staff that somebody may be exiting the building, and that would alert them of the potential danger. I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Question for Mr. Spring.
Yeah, I have 4 questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. First of all, is there an existing conditional use for this 5-acre parcel involving Hope Cottages? There's some existing development there on the east side of the parcel that looks like it might have been some type of residential conditional use. Is there no? Did they never have to have a conditional use for that parcel?
Through the chair, I did not. Through the chair, these are the Hope Cottages that are the subject of this conditional use, and that former use for the treatment for teen girls has long since been has ceased. I didn't research, or I did not find when I researched a conditional use I may not have looked far enough back in the history of the property, but I didn't find that there was a conditional use already existing on the property, although you're correct, it may very well exist.
Okay, well, I trust you. You're a very thorough researcher on those things. But I just thought I'd ask because the Hope Cottages on the east side has been there for a while, and it looks like that would have been subject to conditional use, and I just thought I'd ask. The question about the fence, I'm wondering how effective that in my opinion, it's a 3-foot fence. Just for disclosure purposes, I saw on my walk every day with my wife, and we walked along there, so I did happen to see it today and thought I'd investigate what the fence looked like. And the fence is only like 3 foot high, and there's a gate on the fence, which, anybody could open and get out. I'm just wondering how effective the fence is going to be taking anybody out, or keeping anybody from escaping. And is it, did you just say that you want to eliminate that condition, or that you're satisfied with the existing fence and that we don't need that condition any longer in this?
Through the chair, the condition 4 was the original site plan I received showed no fence at all on the westernmost building. So I put in that condition because the westernmost building is the one that will be occupied first. And I didn't see any fence, and apparently it's a 4-foot fence. I have to defer to your knowledge or to confirm with the applicants the actual height of the fence. It's labeled as 4 feet. I didn't go out and measure it.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering what the need is for it. I'll ask the petitioner more about that. But so are you saying that you just wanted to change condition 4 to read 4-foot high fence closure shall be installed, or I don't understand what you wanted us to do?
Through the chair, Mr. Spring, when I received the original site plan, there was a fence that was shown on the south side of the easternmost building. There was no fence shown on the south side of the westernmost building. So I wrote that condition number 4 to install a fence that was lacking because with the population, the infirmities that they may be experiencing, there's a tendency to wander, and that might present a danger. Even with alarm systems, it might present a danger to the residents, and that there should be a fence on the...
If I could, Ms. O'Brien, I think we understand. The new site plan shows a fence on both, and so if you're adopting this with the new site plan, I believe I heard Ms. O'Brien say you don't need to separately condition it. That's the issue. Now, whether we want to talk about the viability, I suggest you wait for the petitioner.
That's why I was asking whether she was going to recommend eliminating that condition.
If we adopt with the site plan that's on your desk, then I don't think it's necessary. I think that's what Ms. O'Brien was saying.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Okay. Last question then. Also, while walking by the property, I noticed there was very nice landscaping in front, but I don't believe that it met L2 landscaping requirements. It's very consistent with the rest of the residential areas around there, and I think it's fine, but to be technical about it, there's no 15-foot planting bed along there. There's no shrubs planted per 20-foot linear feet. I'm wondering if you had gone out there, somebody had gone out there to assess or evaluate whether they met the L2 requirements, because it looked like it was pretty marginal in terms of that, although satisfactory, in my opinion, for the use. But
through the chair, Mr. Spring, I relied on aerial photos, and granted it was not a current 2016 aerial photo, but from the aerial photo that I looked at, it looked like it would be sufficient to buffer the adjacent residential development, considering that it is multifamily. They are condominiums across the street. So that's what I relied on, is aerial photos.
Okay. That's fine. Also, there's, regarding striping of the parking lot, there's no striping of parking lot stalls on the site where they indicate there's going to be parking. Is that something that would be desirable to include as a condition of approval?
Through the chair, yes, Mr. Spring.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. O'Brien, what is the current use of the property? Is it occupied, and if so, what's the nature of the residence, the treatment, whatever that's going on there?
Through the chair, Ms. Barker, the two structures are currently not occupied.
Do you know how long it's been since they've been occupied?
I would have to defer to the
Okay.
petitioners for that. I don't know how long.
Can you comment for the record about, we have a property here that has had a long-term history of being used as various kinds of supportive housing for people with varying ranges and degrees of at-risk behavior or disabilities. What is it about what is being brought by the petitioner here that requires a conditional use permit? What's triggering the process?
Through the chair, Ms. Barker, the application was for 9 or more, which is considered a large assisted facility, large assisted living facility, which does require a conditional use. And that is what the applicants asked for, and so it was reviewed as a conditional use, even though the application stated that they don't anticipate, at least now, at this moment in time, they don't anticipate more than 5 residents per structure.
Okay, thank you. Maybe that's something to explore a little bit more with the petitioner. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. I have a question. When the distinction, and it's come up a couple times, this 5 per structure, even though the conditional use is for 9 or more, is the use per building or per site? I don't believe we have a conditional use per building if both buildings are on the site, right? It's for the site.
Mr. Chair, theoretically, they could have 9 or more in each building. They could do that if they so chose and had the facilities to accommodate 9 or more in each building. So they were asking for a conditional use for both address sites.
So
You're correct.
Here's what confuses me and what brought up from where I thought Mr. Spring was going with his original question, which is there are other structures on this site, on this lot, but yet they're not part of any kind of site plan associated with this, and yet there's no distinguishing factor on, kind of where things, because there are multiple structures on one lot, isn't that right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So are those existing structures part of this application or not?
No, they aren't. The existing
structures, not the one that part of the site plan, but the ones to the east.
They are not. They specifically identified 2 addresses, 3400 and 3410, as the 2 structures for which they were requesting a conditional use.
And are we approving one conditional use of one site or a conditional use for each of the 2 buildings here, 2 addresses here? What is our action here this evening?
It's a conditional use for 9 or more residents, and they will be housed in 2 structures.
On the combined 2 structures?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I see no other questions for staff. Could we have the petitioner come forward, please?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Ray Collins, R-A-Y-C-O-L-L-I-N-S. I'm a Deputy Director at Hope Community Resources. My colleagues and I have several individuals present with me from Hope, and I'd also like to say that I have Teresa Holt, who is the Long-Term Care Ombudsman from the state of Alaska, and Amanda Lofgren from the Alaska Mental Health Trust present this evening as well in support of this project. We will be setting aside 3 minutes at the end of our presentation for questions or rebuttal. Hope came into existence in 1968 and began providing supports to people who experience intellectual disabilities. This has grown to include individuals who experience mental illness. We have a lengthy history of over 45 years providing community services to the citizens of Alaska and Anchorage. We currently provide supports to over 900 people throughout the state of Alaska in many different community settings. The 2 homes on the property we are here to talk about today have existed for over 25 years and have provided a variety of supports as we've already talked about this evening during that time frame. The property we are speaking about is located on East 20th off Burgaw. It is currently zoned as PLI, and we are required to receive a conditional use permit to utilize the homes on the property for assisted living homes. PLI zoning requires that conditional use permit be for large assisted living homes. While they will be licensed for 9 or more, Hope's philosophy is that the home fit into the community. It is our desire that there will be no more than 5 living in each of the homes we're talking about. One of Hope's values is that of integration and inclusion in the community. This means that every individual should have the opportunity to live, work, recreate, and have relationships in the community and neighborhood of his or her choosing, and therefore realize their membership in our Alaska community at large. To address a couple of the things that were brought up by Mr. Spring, these will be licensed assisted living homes. We're not permitted to hold our individuals captive, if you will, in these facilities. So the fence at the rear of the property would not be intended to prevent someone from leaving. It would be intended to be an additional means of slowing someone down if they intended to elope from the property. Hope's intention would be to have several means of redirecting an individual prior to even getting to a circumstance of that nature, i.e. staffing and pendants that alerted staff when someone was exiting the premises. I'd also like to speak to the striping on the paving. We strive to fit into the neighborhoods where we have assisted living homes, not stand out. If that's something that we needed to do, we certainly would. It just seems like it would be something that would cause us to stand out in that residential area. So I'm going to turn this over to Ronnie Reynolds, who's going to speak to you about the program itself.
Good afternoon. My name is Laronza Reynolds. That's Laronsia, last name Reynolds. I am the Administrator of Behavioral Health Services at Hope Community Resources. The 2 homes that we're speaking of tonight will become assisted living homes. As Ray mentioned, they have been in the community for over 25 years. During the vast majority of that time, they were used to support individuals who experience intellectual developmental disabilities and who may have also had physical disabilities. While the homes have been in operation, there have not been any issues regarding traffic, and we have not seen a decrease in the property value because of the presence of these homes. These homes are required to be licensed as large assisted living homes for 9 or more people. However, we do not, as said earlier, intend to have more than 5 individuals at any given time. Our goal is to have, like I said, not to have more than 5 at any given time. In partnership with the State of Alaska, the Municipality of Anchorage, the Alzheimer's Resource Agency, Anchorage Community Mental Health Services, and the Alaska Psychiatric Institute, we are forging a partnership and a pathway to provide community supports to people who have a primary diagnosis of dementia and a history of multiple placements for extended periods of time at either API or out in the community due to a lack of appropriate home environments or placement opportunities. Hope will operate specialized assisted living homes, providing these individuals the opportunity to live in the community while being provided treatment and support. All services will be developed utilizing a person-centered planning process and will be developed specifically for each individual. Staff in the home will be trained to create the just right level of challenge to each person with dementia so that they can remain engaged and productive and can retain feelings of self-worth. Working with families, we will also adapt activities to help each person remain functional, mobile, and experience a quality of life. We will strive to create a positive and supportive therapeutic milieu within the home for those who live there. Along with service delivery will be specialized behavioral or health-related supports or treatments that facilitate an individual's success and quality of life. As some of you may be aware, persons who experience dementia have a tendency to wander. Because of this, HOPE is designing a safe and secure living environment. The staffing pattern will be 2 to 1, 2 employees for every 5 individuals living in the home. Each home has an existing 4-foot fence surrounding the backyard area, which has been mentioned earlier, and you do have an updated site plan that has been provided.
That just means you all have 3 minutes. If you'd like to dig into that 3, you're welcome to continue. Otherwise, you maintain that for rebuttal.
Okay, I'll just close by saying we believe people can successfully receive supports and treatment outside of an institutional setting, and the goal of the program is to decrease the number of days at API for each person, as well as to decrease the number of readmissions to API for each person. While accomplishing these goals, we want to see people truly experience and become a member of their community and neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. We're going to have some questions. I'm not sure for either Ms. Reynolds or Mr. Collins, but go ahead, Mr. Spring.
Yeah, it's for Ms. Reynolds, I believe.
Okay. Why don't both you come up just until we make sure we go through our questions? Go ahead, John.
Yes, and I hope the commissioner will bear with me. I used to be a health and human services planner for the city, and I'm just really curious about aspects of the program. I realize that dementia is a huge problem throughout the country and every city. I don't understand what the special nature of these dementia patients are that would receive care at Hope Cottages when there's so many people with dementia out there. You can never possibly deal with all of the need out there. Is there something special about these patients that lend itself to this special program? You mentioned API referrals. Is that, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So specifically, these individuals do have multiple placements at API or placements within other living settings that have not been successful. So again, the focus is to specifically work with the partners mentioned previously and to create that community environment for those folks to, again, decrease the amount of readmissions to API or them being institutionalized and not being able to live in community.
I'm sorry, I just still don't understand exactly what would prompt the dementia patient to be admitted to API.
Again, that would vary depending on the individual and the situation. Again, there are specific criteria for admission to API. And again, those individuals have had multiple admissions or have remained in an institutional setting due to a lack of placement opportunities for them to live in community. So again, this is in response to that.
So just to clarify in my own mind then, the majority of dementia patients, like my mother, go to retirement homes or assisted living facilities that are mostly private, correct? And they're mostly either they have their own resources to pay for the admission, the monthly fee, or Medicaid will pay for it, right? I mean, that's typically how dementia patients are treated, or services they're offered, right? So these patients aren't then acceptable to be admitted to the regular assisted living through Medicaid or whatever?
Actually, sir, Ray Collins again. I actually was the program manager for the state of Alaska's assisted living licensing program. I worked there for 6 years. And this truly is an assisted living home. And it will be licensed as such by the state of Alaska. The license is not a specialized license. It's a home that will be licensed to serve elders, individuals who may experience dementia. Very often in the population of individuals who reside in assisted living homes, there are dual or multiple diagnoses. These happen to be individuals who have had a history of mental health issues. We know in Alaska that we are lacking in terms of placements for individuals who are aging, who are experiencing cognitive decline, and who have dual diagnoses and may be more at risk for wandering or having behaviors associated with confusion in terms of their aging status. So truly, this is not a specialized license. I would also point out to the Commission that this is a step down from what the property has been used for before. There was an RPTC, a residential psychiatric treatment center located on the premises, and this is an assisted living home, which in terms of level of service is in fact a step down.
Yes, just to clarify, I'm not saying that it's not a good program. I'm just trying to understand what the program consists of. And
yes, sir.
I think you've helped me in that respect. So thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Any other questions? So seeing none, you have 2 minutes and 40 seconds for rebuttal. We'll open up for public hearing at this point, but then we'll bring you back up. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify?
Thank you, Commission, for having us here tonight. Thank you. I'm Joy Butler, Joy Butler. I reside at 3411 East 20th Avenue, and a friend here and I are representing the East Thunderbird Condo Association. Everyone on East 20th on that street across from that lot is in the Condo Association. And I'm also, my son lives next door at 3413. And so he's not here tonight. He's at work. So thank you for letting us be here. My really concern is not the assisted living home. I was director of nursing at the Ketchikan Pioneer Home when we opened the Alzheimer's unit there. So I'm familiar with the assisted living and the Alzheimer's. The dual diagnosis is a little bit different, but I'm sure that the people at Hope can address that and satisfy our concerns about that. What else? The lot. Let's talk about the lot. I've been traumatized already. The city is going to get the water main people, and my son has a 20-year plus crabapple tree in his front yard. And the water main is in his yard. And they're going to have to cut that down. And I've been really grieving that. And the lot across the street is really nice. And the moose in the spring, they have their babies there. But I'm hoping that, and Hope can answer a lot of my questions, that it'll be one level so I don't have to look out. I'm right across from it. I'll be right across from it. So if some of the Alzheimer's patients get out, it's not if, it's probably when. They may come knocking on my door at 3 a.m. or whatever, and it will require 24/7 staffing to keep track of them. And but mainly we're talking about the lot. And my big hope is that they have really good landscaping and maybe leave a few trees. So it'll be, kind of buffed by the trees, because there's a lot of trees in there. It's a nice lot. And they were talking about the buildings that are down the street. I've been up here from Ketchikan for about 14 years, and there's never been any problems with any of the Hope people. So I have no heartburn with them. And my grieving is just that lot's going to be gone and the trees are gone, but it'll be. I'm sure it'll be fine. They will build it to look like the rest of the street over there. So, and the other concern is the entrance and the exit. The exit from that area is right behind when I back out of my driveway. And there is a lot of traffic on East 20th now, and somehow we need to address that, because there's a lot of kids. And Mr. Spring, you walk there, so you kind of know. I've come close to hit people, and the kids are on skateboards and bicycles. And today I saw a family with 2 or 3 kids in a little red wagon. So somebody else will have to address that, not you. So anyway, that's what I have to say, is that everybody over there is with the condo association, and we're wondering if it's going to affect our property value. That's why I think if it's landscaped really well, that people won't even notice. This is Anchorage. And so thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight.
Thank you for your testimony. I'll let when they come back up, they'll clarify, but they're reusing the existing building, so I don't think that you're going to see a big change from what is there already.
They're not going to put 2 buildings on that lot?
This is just the 2 existing buildings. We'll let them speak to it, but I don't think you're going to see a perceptible change from a development standpoint.
Oh.
That's good news. Amazing how much, see, this did good here tonight.
Oh, that makes me happy, because they have the buildings down there that have been there since before me.
They're there.
And so, when you move in, you accept them. And there's never been any problems with them. No.
Well, thank you for your
none at all.
testimony. Thank you for telling us that Mr. Spring has 3 kids in a wagon.
That was not him.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate
it.
Thank
you, Mr. Robbins.
Yes, ma'am. If you'd like to testify, please come forward.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you for being here. And Hope Cottages, all of you, I want to acknowledge you for the work and the wonderful things you do in our community. I, too, have worked in human service and in personal care dealing with dementia patients. Again, our main concern is increase in traffic, and already we have too much traffic on our street with a multitude of people that speed up and down East 20th. If anything in the building of this new facility or reoccupation of what's there, we ask that somebody petition the city to post more speed markers on East 20th. I was under the misapprehension and idea that they were going to build some big industrial building, maybe 4 or 5 feet high. I also would like to know how long it's going to take them to build what they're going to do, and if so, when will that start? And I'm thrilled that they're not going to remove the woods across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Could we have your name for the record, please?
Renee Lee Jacoby, R-E-N-E, and Jacoby, J-A-C-O-B-Y.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? If you're not you're not affiliated with, okay, come on down.
I just happen to know them all. My name's Amanda Lofgren, Lofgren. I'm a community member, but I also am a professional that works in senior services in the community. And I'm here to testify on behalf of this project. And just really to address Mr. Spring's point, we have a significant number of seniors in our community who, through their Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, the cognitive impairments impact an individual's ability to communicate and, have conversations and dialogue and understand some of the communication that's happening to them. And we don't have a lot of specialized dementia care services here in the community. And so what oftentimes happens is that lack of communication with their provider or their family member can result in maybe a behavior or an outburst. And so what happens is they inappropriately get placed at the Alaska Psychiatric Institution. And so over time we saw more and more individuals actually being placed there with a primary diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, which is not an appropriate placement, but there was another place for them to go. And so for the last 2 years we've been working as a community and a state to really address this issue and partnering with HOPE to come forward and provide this service for our community members. And so I just wanted to address the fact that, we are the fastest growing senior population in the nation, and we do need to be prepared to serve more individuals. But this is a start to have specialized care here in our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Teresa Holtz. I'm the long-term care ombudsman for Alaska. So we visit all the assisted living homes in the state, advocate for residents who live in those homes. As Amanda said, we've been working as a community to bring this project to fruition. And there is an extensive need for specialized care like this for homes that serve individuals with Alzheimer's. That's all I wanted to say, and we support this project.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? I think that about covers it. So if not, unless someone else would like to testify, I'll invite the petitioner down for your rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much for the two of you for coming out this evening. Really nice to meet you. I just want to address 3 things that were brought up. We do intend to have 24/7 staffing in this assisted living home. So hopefully that will alleviate any concerns presented about staff not being present to help redirect someone if they are confused and not sure where they're going or attempt to wander away. We do have a U-shaped driveway that will help with safety concerns associated with people backing out from the property. The U-shape can be utilized so someone's always entering the roadway from a front perspective in terms of a vehicle. And we do not intend to chop any trees down on the property. These are existing structures. We're not constructing any buildings on these sites. So hopefully that will answer those questions. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you. What's the will of the body? Ms. Barker.
Actually, I had another question
Oh,
for the petitioner.
you ran away too quickly. Go ahead, Ms. Barker.
Well, I did hear some concern on the part of the residents about noise and construction. I'm a little confused. You've talked about the buildings being 25 years old. The way I'm reading this, they're actually 45 years old. And so I'm just curious as to what level of remodeling rehabilitation you're planning to take and what the timetable is for that.
We don't attend any major overhaul of the properties. We believe the existing premises meet licensure standard. We do intend some technological modifications to the premises associated with monitoring in common areas of the home, GPS type technology that may require some electrical adjustments. But we do not intend any major overhaul of the property. We strive to fit into the neighborhoods where we have assisted living homes. In the state of Alaska, there are about 658 licensed assisted living homes. HOPE operates about 100 of those homes in communities across the state. One of the ways that we do so successfully is by integrating into neighborhoods, not standing out like a sore thumb. We very much so want to know our neighbors want to partner with our neighbors and want to understand the ebb and flow of a given community and how we can become part of that neighborhood. In terms of property improvements, we're always looking to have a pretty yard in the summer, just like everybody else, and keep our driveway plowed in the wintertime. We do have a grounds crew that attends to those things so that we make sure we keep the premises in good repair and with sufficient upkeep. We do have inspections that occur on an annual basis, and the licensing department helps us to adhere to those premises standards as well.
Any other questions? And so when do you expect to have occupancy?
We're hoping to get inspected, our inspection process wrapped up. I think we're looking at the end of September, beginning of October.
Great, thank you. I see no further questions for you. Thank you for your testimony. At this point, I'd like to close the public hearing. What's the will of the body? Mr. Spring.
Yes, in the matter of case 2016-0074, conditional use for an assisted living facility serving a group of 9 or more residents, I move to approve the site plan and application with the conditions of staff, the 3 conditions of staff, and that excludes condition number 4, with an additional condition, number 4, replacing that, which states resolve need for parking lot striping with MOA traffic department.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Seconded by Ms. Barker. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. I think the facility, in my opinion, fits in very well with the existing residential neighborhood. It's really undistinguishable from the residential structures across the street. The facility is very well maintained. I think they put a new roof on recently, and it looks very nice. It's not expected, I don't expect it to impact traffic on 20th Street, given the nature of the facility. None of the clients drive. There is a need, as identified by the petitioner, for specialized care for Alzheimer's patients. It meets the conditional use standards. It meets the specific standards for adult care facilities with 9 or more persons, section 2105040A.3. And also, finally, it's fully supported by the Airport Heights Community Council.
Thank you, Mr. Spring. Ms. Barker, you seconded. I have others in the queue, but anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, I would. Although the proposed project is an institutional type facility which requires a conditional use permit, I'd also like to point out that because of the community integrated scale of it, it does in fact also provide integrated opportunities for assisted housing, assisted living for people experiencing disabilities in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Mr. Kange.
Thank you. Mr. Spring, just for clarification through the chair, just because staff didn't actually go out and verify the vegetative buffering, were you satisfied that that condition is met just because you walk this every day? Otherwise, I would propose that at least staff verifies that there might be a need to resolve the vegetative buffering. But I'm going to defer to you since you walked by it. I haven't been by the site, and just as staff pointed out, they hadn't actually visually looked at the site.
Yes, through the chair, I think that probably needs to be done. I think they find that it doesn't technically meet the standards for L2 landscaping. I didn't see any signs of the shrubs, for instance, in the front yard. There's nice landscaping, though. I mean, it's very consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. And I think my opinion is that sometimes I'm inclined to overrule the existing standards, which we probably shouldn't do, just because I think they might be unnecessary. But in this, if we want to hold them to the letter of the Title 21, then yes, we should probably do that.
I'm with you, and sometimes that I will waiver that. However, we've heard testimony from neighbors across the street that that's something that's important to them, and so I'm more inclined to maybe make a motion to amend yours, adding the need to resolve the need or of vegetative buffering via an actual site visit.
I would.
But other than that, I'm supporting the motion for the various reasons as mentioned.
I would, if you make that motion, I would second that.
So could you restate that amendment to the motion?
I move to amend the department recommendations to add a need to resolve the vegetative buffering via an actual site visit to ensure compliance with AMC 21.05.04A.3, specifically Section C, vegetative open space.
Okay, could you hit your motion button, and then we get a second, please. Okay, any further discussion? Please, Mitzi?
Yeah, is the intent that this would be a negotiated process?
My intent is that they just verify that the standard has actually been met because, again, Commissioner Spring has walked the site. He doesn't feel comfortable that it has. Staff pulled up an aerial photo. And again, had there not been public testimony, I would say let's go for it. But since we've got concern from neighboring neighbors, anyway.
So I'm familiar with the site too. I bike in that area, and it's nice, mature landscaping. My concern is I don't want to see the petitioner finding themselves caught sideways with a lot of additional expense layered on top. So
that's not my intent. My intent is just to verify that the standard has been actually met via site visit. But hopefully my motion captured that.
Mr. Spring.
Well, if they verify that it doesn't meet it, then they would require them to put it in.
thank you. That's begging my next question. What happens if they don't? Thank you.
And you got the answer to that, it sounded like. Okay. Please vote on that motion. So that is amended. We're back to the main motion. Any additional discussion? Ms. Bailey.
I just kind of want to reiterate a couple things that people said. There is an increased need for elderly facilities, especially for those meeting specific needs. And then also, I just want to point out that cases like these are not always supported by community councils and by the residents, and the fact that it was unanimously supported by the community councils, and then that the individuals who came to testify here who had concerns, it seems as though their concerns have been addressed, and that's very reassuring, along with the fact that it seems as though the staff and the company itself was supported by the residents, and that they had said that they were easy to work with in the past. And so just the amount that you've worked with the communities is very reassuring, since it seems as though a key part of this plan is to integrate within the community, and it's good to see those responsible and good relations taking place.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. At this point, please vote. And that conditional use permit is approved unanimously. Thank you for your testimony here this evening. And your submittal, thank you for testifying as well. At this point, we're going to back up to the consent agenda, acknowledging that Ms. Bailey will not be voting on the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Kange. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Barker. Any discussion on the consent agenda, which consists of one resolution, Resolution 2016-029? Any opposition? Hearing none, that resolution is supported. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kange. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.